I felt crazy devouring. Disclaimer before I begin talking about the ogre selling coffee or something like that. I judge books by their cover, and I think most of us do. We're lying if we say we don't. Hello, welcome to this video. Welcome to my channel. I think that wrap-ups are kind of my favorite videos to make at the moment, just because I like sitting down at the end of every month and just reviewing what I read and reviewing the month from a bookish lens. I'm gonna review the books that I read this month. So I actually own 3 of them, and then 2 of them were either library reads or audiobook through Spotify reads. We'll go in the order that I read them. So I just organized them by read, and there's a couple sprinkled in, but I'm just gonna tell you guys basically about what I remember from it, because unless it's spoilery. If it's spoilery, I won't tell you that part, but I'm just gonna tell you what I remember from it. The other thing is I don't know, I know there was discourse on remembering what you've read and whatnot, but I will say that I am one of those readers that predominantly forgets what happens in my books, and I don't know if it's necessarily because I read them quickly and so then I can't remember them. I think it's more so just that I forget. There will be moments in the books or scenes or quotes or something that will stay with me, but the large part of the book just kind of leaves me after I close it, and honestly sometimes even before I've closed it. So let's just get into it. I love August just because of the vibe of August, because you can feel summer coming. I mean, not summer, autumn coming. But I love when we get into September. I'm hoping that the weather gets better here, because I remember in Massachusetts it used to be so it would slowly, the days would be getting a little bit chillier. I really want to start spending time outdoors again more. I don't love summer. Summer is my least favorite season, so I'm glad that it's over. But anyways, so let's just get into the books that I read. Some of them were oddly autumn vibe books, but it worked for me, and I think you can obviously you can read whatever you want whenever you want, but for me personally, I think I'm happy with starting to get into my fall reads in August. So that's all to say, let's get into the books that I read. I read 5 books in August. Not many, but it was a good enough number for me. I think I've just been I feel like I've been saying this every single month since June or May, but I have been kind of in a slump, not really feeling pushed towards or engaged with books beyond a couple here or there, which we'll get into. It's kind of going with the flow of what I'm interested in reading, what I'm not. I'm hoping that with the autumn months I'll be okay, let's read. Maybe I know part of it was a reading slump, but I'm also wondering to myself if I just kind of fall off reading during the summer month because I just don't want to do anything. I don't know. The first book that I read was Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I feel like I say that a lot these days. But this is basically a pre-Dracula. That's weird to say. But it's a pre-Dracula novel, vampire novel about this girl. What's her name? Laura. The reason I'm confusing her name is because I read Hungerstone, I think earlier this year, and it was a reinterpretation or a reimagining of Carmilla. I like the original a little bit better. It is very short, and compared to novels now, it felt less detailed. It felt very fast paced because things happen very quickly and one after the other. Every single chapter also has a name, you know how they name the different chapters or whatever. But I thought it was super interesting. I really did enjoy it, and it was more sexually tense than I expected it to be, which I know might be a weird thing to say, but usually with classic novels, you don't, I mean, I don't know when this was published. When was this originally published? I just feel with older novels, you don't, between 1871 and 1872, so that's not that old. But I just, whenever I think of like classic novels, I don't expect them to be so charged as this one felt. And I just, it was really enjoyable read. I think this is like perfect for the fall months. Like, you light a candle at night, it's dark, you have your little book lamp, or you're reading it on your Kindle, so you don't need like a light, and you're just reading and like devouring, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm glad I picked this up because it was really interesting. That was Carmilla. That was really loud. The next book that I read was Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I had such a blast with this one. I actually made like an entire reading vlog for this one, so I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about it. I'll just like link it here, I guess. It's basically the sequel slash second in the series to Gideon the Ninth, and I was so confused for most of that book because I was like, there were things that I wanted to happen that I was just like, if this does not happen, or if I don't like get a satisfying answer for like what's going on, I'm not going to continue the series. And I usually don't feel that way for books. Like, I'll just continue the series unless I don't like the book, like even if it's not going in the way that I exactly wanted to. But with this one, I was so invested with like certain characters and just like certain less plot lines and more characters that I was just like, if things don't happen the way I want them to, I'm out. And I will say that they didn't exactly happen the way that I wanted them to, but it wrapped up in such a like pleasing way that I have actually been reading Nona the Ninth. I've been going pretty slowly with it because like I started teaching like a couple weeks ago, and I haven't really been reading as much. I'm wasting more time than I'm not, to be honest. I have time to read, I'm just not reading. I'm again confused with Nona the Ninth. I think this is just the pattern that we're going to be dealing with, because Nona the Ninth, I also don't entirely know what's going on, but like it is so worth it. The ending and the like vibes are so worth it that like I went through Harrow the Ninth specifically literally suffering because I was like, when am I going to get closure, or not even closure, like answers? And once I did at the end, I was just like mind blown. Like, I'm literally obsessed with these series. I love Gideon. She's my favorite character in a while. Like, genuinely one of my favorite characters I've ever read. So that's Harrow the Ninth. I'm gonna just link the reading vlog so you guys can see that and my like in-time reactions, because it was crazy. I felt crazy. The next book that I read was A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. I was so excited because this book specifically is the romance club pick for two different book clubs that I was thinking of joining. I went to one, so basically there's like a series of book clubs at one of the bookstores that I go to a lot here, and I went to a different one that wasn't like romance centered. It was just like, I think it's like just like fiction, literary fiction general, and that one went really well. So I'm so psyched to go to this one. And there's also another one this weekend that I'm hoping to go to. I might not make it, but if I don't make it, I'm for sure gonna go to the next one because I read this. There was another book club that I wanted to join, but I'm pretty sure they like charge, and I'm not in a position to like pay money for a club. And also like I went to a different club, like a writing club, that was like interesting vibes. I still don't know if I'm gonna join it or not, because it kind of felt like creative writing for like not even like novice writers, like baby writers. And I was just like, I didn't know how to tell, like I didn't say anything, but in class, like, I don't know. We're not having that conversation right now. We're talking about this. This was a really cute book. I enjoyed it. It's all about like found family, and there is a romance plot line here that I really, really loved. I will say that it was like, I think, unless I'm remembering incorrectly, it was less spicy than her other book. What was the other book called? Irregular Witches. I love this one. Maybe I loved it because it was less spicy. It was just so sweet. And it's just basically about Sarah, who at the beginning of the series, or at the beginning of the book, she loses her magic because she revives her aunt. And the whole book is just about like beyond her family relationships and these different relationships that she's developing and the romance plotline, she is also like feels that missing piece of her. And this was so cute and cozy, but like not in like a overly sweet way, because I think when I read like overly sweet books, I don't love them. I don't even approach most of them. Like there's one that went viral a couple of years ago, the ogre selling coffee or something like that. I'll put the book there if I figure out what it's called. But I never picked that one up because I was just like, that just kind of sounds like so low stakes that I'm not going to be into it. This one though, like the stakes aren't incredibly high, but it was so fun to read. I read it actually as an audiobook, I will say that as well, and the narrator did a really good job. I just got a physical copy because I was like, if I'm going to go to the club, I want to highlight and stuff my notes. I haven't transferred my notes yet, but I'm planning to do that before the book club meeting next month, because I think it's the October book club pick, which is cute too because that's my birthday month. So I'm excited to go to the book club and see what it's all about. So that was A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. Then I read The Painted Room by The Painted Room by Inger Christensen, and this is also short, sweet. I bought it at the bookstore that I like go to the clubs and stuff for, because they had like a section that was for Women in Translation Month, and I just found it really fascinating, just very briefly looking at the back and like even the cover and stuff. I judge books by their cover, and I think most of us do. We're lying if we say we don't. It was an interesting novel. So I haven't really heard people talking about this at all. And what was interesting was like, I kind of did some like Googling after I finished the book, because I was trying to figure out how much of it was like based in reality, because the paintings are real. I wanted to know if it was like somewhat based in reality or if it was like completely made up but inspired by these paintings. I didn't really get an answer when I was looking for it, and when I was reading through the Goodreads reviews as well, not many people have like reviewed it or like seem to have like information on that. Maybe I just missed it when I was like looking it up, but it's a novel in 3 parts. The first part is like a series of journals. The second part, and it's interesting because every part, so like this part is the diaries of this person, and then the next page is a painting, and then the second part is like this, the Peacock's Secret, and then it has the painting. And so like for every section it has a title, see this one, and then the painting here. And like the painting has to do with what the character is talking about. So the first one is what was his name? First one's the Diaries of Marsilio. I think he's the like secretary of the Duke. And he's like kind of just being kind of gossipy. He's in love with this woman who ends up I won't tell you who ends up doing it, but you do find out. I didn't really feel like it was like a plot, like a spoilery type thing, because the novel doesn't feel like tense or like, oh, I need to get to the end. I was mostly reading it out of curiosity, and I did have to kind of push myself to read it. The section that I liked the least, which ironically was also the shortest section, is the little boy's perspective, because it gets like really fantastical at the end, and to the point where like the Greek gods and stuff come in. Or is it the Roman gods? Probably the Roman gods, because I think this is based in Rome. The mythology comes into it, and that makes it interesting for me at the end, or made it interesting for me at the end. There were a lot of like interesting points that it was making too. Like I did highlight various things that kind of would stand out to me. Like there's this one quote: "There is no difference between existence and non-existence. Non-existence is only a word, but the word is always a person, and the person is the dimension in the human being that lives in love for what is not yet created, for what is lacking. What is lacking is the soul or God, And before we have created them, we are forced to believe that there is a difference between existence and non-existence. I'm still brewing on those lines. I mean, it was an interesting book. I mean, not really a favorite and not really a standout, but I feel like even when I was reading it and when I was highlighting different things, I was like, there are quotes and stuff in here that I could kind of ruminate on and like write about. So there was a lot of conversation about like God and religion and morality and art. And I really like, I think something that is really important to me and that I want to like dive deeper into and kind of do when I'm reading certain things over others is the idea of the link between art and God, or the link between art and spirituality and soul. It's just something that like is very, very fascinating to me, and also kind of like a cornerstone of my beliefs at the moment. I'm glad that I read it. It was a different thing to read among all my picks, my usual picks, you know. So there was that one. And then finally, last but not least, which is crazy, I read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I listened to this as an audiobook. I think that's generally how I read romance novels, is just audiobooks, because while I do think, and I'm actually going to get into this a little bit more because I want to talk about this, I will say a disclaimer before I begin talking about this. I have not written anything down. Like, I haven't organized my thoughts. This is literally just what I'm thinking at the moment, and I could change or like refine my ideas later on. But during the time that I was reading this, I actually also came across, I think it was a TikTok. I saw something online that was like basically ranting about how like she hates, this one creator was saying that she does not like the term brain off books, or the idea of like turning off your intellectual mind when you're reading anything, even if it's like something that as a novel is kind of like shallow or whatever. I have like certain ideas about this. I think that like there are simply books like Deep End that don't require or ask the reader to think beyond what's happening. And what I mean by that is like, it's not like, the point of the book isn't necessarily to get you thinking about things in a different way. And I think that like at the same time, there are a lot of books that like are very intellectual and still get you thinking, even if that's not the point of them. But and I guess I'm thinking of a specific like category of books. So I'm talking specifically about like super smutty romance like books. And what was fascinating is that like at the beginning, I even said this in my vlog, but I think my vlog is coming out after this. But I was just thinking like, even though like Deep End was a brain off book for me, like I didn't sit there and think to myself like, ooh, what are the implications of like kink and consent and this and that and the other. Like, I don't know. I'm still like brewing my thoughts, because like I think that I think what I'm trying to say is that like I think it's perfectly fine if a reader wants to turn off, quote unquote, turn off their brain and read a book just to enjoy it, and doesn't want to intellectualize or like overthink about every single thing that they're reading, or like sit with it beyond like, LOL, this was a good book, like OMG, blah, blah, blah. It was like funny, or hee hee ha ha, right? If you are the reader, that type of reader that wants to do that, I think books even like Deep End, because this is what I wanted to get to, is like initially my initial thought was like, no, I can turn off my brain if I want to. But then because I saw that video as I was listening to the book, I started just like casually picking up on different things that like someone could actually think about and like intellectualize almost. Like specifically for this one, it deals a lot with like consent, and like obviously there's like smut, so it deals with sex and stuff too, but it deals largely with consent and trust in relationships and intimacy. And I don't know if it's like BDSM. Is it BDSM? I guess kink or whatever. This book like deals with that. And I was literally thinking like, okay, I guess like the book itself isn't necessarily a brain off book, low key, even though it is a book with which I can turn off my brain way more than something like, I'll say Game of Thrones, because with Game of Thrones I felt like, oh my god, there's so much to think about here. But like, I don't know, I think obviously everybody's concerned about the rise of anti-intellectualism, but I don't think it's necessarily anti-intellectualism. I think sometimes it's just that people are willing to be silent about things that like they are thinking about, or not talk about them, or intellectualize them, or share their thoughts, or like overthink things, because we don't allow for like, we don't give people room to be wrong. And I mean, I will say I felt this even in myself, is like, I have so many thoughts at any given point in time, and I usually will figure out like 5 years onwards that I was wrong about something, or that I was like off base about something. But I also don't like publicize many of my thoughts online, which is unless it's related to books, and that's like personal and subjective too. But like, there are a lot of things that like I've had big thoughts about. I know this is so vague, but like I'll give an example. Is recently I started drafting an essay for Substack, which I want to get into writing more, because I really just, I don't know, I like the idea of sharing my thoughts and like engaging with other people. I've been reading a lot of Substack essays as well. I've been writing this essay on Substack about like critical thinking in religion, because of like something that happened. It was so stupid, but it was also kind of funny. But anyways, yeah, so in that essay, in its current draft, I'm talking about like covering hijab and like modesty and whatever. And even in the essay, I was literally writing about how 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if someone would have told me like, you were gonna take off your hijab, or you're going to like struggle with it, or you're going to like feel less certain about it, I would have been like, you're insane. And also like, God told me to do it, so I'm gonna do it. Whereas like right now, I don't do it purely because like God told me to do it. In fact, my reasoning for covering or even dressing like quote unquote modestly is very different, and quite far apart from like, oh, I'm just doing it because God told me. Obviously there are more serious things than that. I think like that's not super serious, at least like on a global scale. But I know, and I've like grown up on the internet, so I've seen like people get absolutely crucified for having bad takes. And I'm not talking about like the actual serious harmful like stereotyping or racism or homophobia or any of that. I'm talking about like things that are just like not great takes, and then everybody turns and points fingers at you and is like, you're a horrible person. And it's like, no, I'm just young and I'm coming from like a specific background or whatever. Anyway, all that to say is, I think that part of the reason that like people would rather just read a book and enjoy it and move on with their lives, as opposed to like sit down and stew in it, is not just like, oh, everybody's getting stupider. I think part of it is that like there's danger in exploring your thoughts and exploring your ideas, not just like a personal quote unquote danger. And when I say danger, I use that kind of liberally. It's more so like, it's a scary thing to like challenge your own beliefs, you know, like things that I used to be so adamant about like 10 years ago, I'm not adamant about them right now. And maybe that makes me a worse person to some people, but that's just, I feel like it's development for me personally. But it was hard. It was like over a decade of just like experimenting and thinking and talking to different people and asking what they think, and like challenging my own like original thought, which I was raised with, blah blah blah. And in the same way, I think that like when we engage with literature, at least people who are also like vocal about different things online, and like they want to share their thoughts, and especially because we are all so online these days, there is a danger in sharing your thoughts with like a very big audience, quote unquote big audience. And I don't necessarily mean like a big audience of people who will for sure see it, but even just like, sorry, I'm like fixing that. LOL. Why does it look like that? Anyways, but even just like the possibility of so many people seeing your thoughts and like judging you for where you're coming from, and like attacking you. And that's the thing that is so crazy to me. It's like attacking you for your ideas or your thoughts or whatever. I feel like I should give more context for this. And I cannot believe that Deep End of all books is getting me to talk about this. I wasn't even thinking about talking about it in the video because I'm writing a like freaking essay about it, but I posted, I like typed like I wrote a comment on a TikTok, and I don't use TikTok that much. Like, I especially don't comment very often. I just occasionally, like, if I feel like, oh, I really want to like respond to what I'm listening to, I'll write a comment, whatever. And like for the first time ever, I think I got a bunch of reactions, and like I got a lot of likes. My notifications were going off, and I was like, I actually kind of hate this. Like I if you look at my phone screen, I actually have like the little notification badge turned off for a lot of my apps because I just hate seeing them. And that's probably why I'm so bad at texting people back as well, because I don't see that I have that many messages at any given point in time. But anyway, I was getting a lot of like a huge range of comments, and it was kind of crazy because some of them were like attacking me like in the weirdest way. And the video is actually talking my hijab specifically, but I didn't even say anything about hijab. I just said we need more critical thinking in religious spaces as kind of the sum up of what I said. I'll show you what the comment said as well in case you want to know. But I even got like comments attacking me. And I was just like, brother, I don't know you. I wasn't talking to you. I was just responding to a video and you're attacking me. It was so funny. I got one that was like, about to take off your hijab, comment, or question God comment. I don't know. It was just weird. I was like, bro, like, what is happening? And thankfully, like, I didn't take it personally. I can definitely see myself in moments, if something like this was to happen, like, I can see myself being a little bit hurt by it. But in this instance, I was just so like flabbergasted that the internet is so weird and people are so weird that I just like found it more so humorous. Anyway, back to the anti-intellectualism blab, because it's still like unbaked thoughts. But I just was thinking, like, I don't think it's entirely a problem of people being stupid. I think it's also a problem of not giving people space to respectfully share their thoughts and like engage in dialogue and learn. And also the fact that we're not willing to learn from each other. So why would anyone read a book and have deep thoughts about it and then want to share those thoughts about it? Because like also like I think intellectualism, or like thinking about things and like research and all that, only goes so far when you're in like a little corner of your own. Like, you need to, part of critical thinking, in my opinion, is engaging in dialogue and conversations with other people, especially other people who don't agree with you. But like not in debate format, because I feel like debate format can often just be like oh, I'm trying to win and you're trying to like lose or whatever. Just like talking about things. And so if I like read Deep End and I leave it thinking like, maybe the like whole the whole concept of writing like a contract and writing out like every single thing that they were okay with, because this is something they did in the book, but like checking off every single thing that they were okay with, and then like, you know, maybe that seems like overkill. I didn't think it was, personally. I thought it was kind of hilarious and also awkward. I would never do that. But I was like, oh, that's an interesting view on like approaching consent and intimacy. Like, if someone was to share that like opinion, or kind of be like, actually, like, that's stupid, I would not want to be the person to shut down that conversation and be like, no, you're stupid. Like, I'd be like, okay, let's talk about it then. How do we achieve consent in these spaces or in these situations? What is that, like my hair? Oh no, that's a scarf. Anyway, so this is all to say, I don't know how coherent my thoughts are, and please take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. The grain of salt being that like I genuinely need to sit down and like organize my thoughts. I think I like kind of mushed up a bunch of like different smaller thoughts about like brain off books and anti-intellectualism and then critical thinking and religion or whatever. I mixed those up a lot in this part. So please take what I'm saying like with the disclaimer that like if I am saying anything that doesn't make sense or seems a little like rough at the edges, so to say, it's because it is, because I still haven't like I literally couldn't sleep last night, and I was writing in my notes app my idea for the Substack essay and just like drafting out my initial thoughts. So I'm still thinking about this idea, and I don't think that they're all super related. But anyways, I read Deep End. After seeing that stupid TikTok video, I started thinking about it more, because I was like, oh, like what are the things that I could pick apart in this novel to intellectualize? And then I was like, I kind of hate this, because I just wanted to enjoy something that, like, just for the sake of enjoying it. But anyway, I'm sorry if this last part especially was so all over the place. And thank you for watching specifically. I have been a little less like on top of my posting, just because August was, as I expected it to be, super busy. But I have several videos planned that should be coming out soon. Vlogs, sit downs, recommendations. I honestly am just doing this because it's a really fun like outlet for me, and especially because I think writing has become such a like work adjacent thing for me, especially because I went and did my master's. I still do it and I still love it, and I will continue to do it until the day that I die. But I've been feeling like the making the videos and just editing it and finding music and stuff is just such a breath of fresh air for like when I'm away from teaching duties and writing and adult responsibilities. Thank you for watching and for just putting up with me and my incoherent thoughts. I'd love to hear what you have to say about the whole brain off thing that I talked about. And also tell me what you read in August. Do you have any recommendations for me? Especially if you have like fall recommendations, I'd love to hear about them. I'm actually compiling a list right now of the books that I am really dying to read in the fall seasons, and that should be an autumn recommendations video coming out soon. I think mid-September is where I'm aiming for it to come out, when I'm aiming for it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. As always, I really truly appreciate it, and it's just so fun to have like a little bit of a like community online. But yeah, share what you're reading. I'd love to hear from you, and I will hopefully see you guys in another video very soon. Goodbye.